Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
Michigan opened its 2025 football season with a win over New Mexico on Saturday night. We break down Bryce Underwood's debut, the new-look Michigan offense, the defense, and everything else from the game coming up on Wolverine Confidential. All right, guys, good to be with you here. Sunday night, late night, August 31st, the day after Michigan's season opening win over New Mexico at home. 34-17 was the final score. Michigan had 452 yards of offense to New Mexico's 267. Michigan forced 3 turnovers, only had one themselves on special teams. We'll talk about all that. But really, the first thing where you're going to start with this game, if you're talking about it with anyone, right, is Bryce Underwood, number 1 recruit in the country, making his college debut. We all have thoughts on how he looked. Fire away. What did you think of Bryce Underwood?
I don't know where to start. People want to say he was as good as advertised. I don't know how you would advertise what he was going to do because none of us got to see him in practice. But I will say this: he exceeded my expectations. I was expecting some hiccups early. I didn't necessarily expect. I expected to see the talent, but I expected him to, make more mistakes than he did. And I think for me, and Sharon Moore said this after the game Saturday, but they didn't ask him to do too much. If you go back and look at the play call, especially early on, there was a lot of dump offs, a lot of short stuff, just to get him into the game. And as he got going, the flow of the game, you could see the talent. I mean, you could see the footwork was very good. He's extending plays when he needed to do that. The velocity on his passes was there. It's unlike anything really we've seen in a long time covering Michigan. Maybe Joe Milton, and even Joe's accuracy wasn't this good. So Underwood was very good, and I think he gave himself a C+ grade afterwards. I would go a little higher than that, probably B+ given the expectations and everything. But no, he was very good. I went back just for fun. Went back last year and looked at Michigan, the box score from Michigan's opener against Fresno State. And as we all know, Davis Warren got to start there. 15-25, 118 yards, a touchdown, interception. But you got the uneasy feeling coming out of that game that Michigan's quarterback situation was in trouble. You don't have that here. It's clear as day that Bryce Underwood is the real deal. Yes, he's only a freshman. Yes, he maybe sailed a couple throws, made a few mistakes here and there, but my God, it was for an 18-year-old making his first start at the college level. He almost looked like a polished veteran to me.
Yeah, I mean, how many times last year when we were watching the Michigan quarterbacks did we see like happy feet? And it's like, oh, they just didn't look poised and comfortable in the pocket. And it's like, oh man, you could tell when something bad was going to happen. But I know with Bryce, you never really got that sense. Like he got the ball out on time, made smart decisions. The arm strength is incredible. I mean, just the zip he gets on the ball without even it looks effortless. It's like a smooth throwing motion, and then boom, it's on the receiver just like that. And like Aaron said, it feels different than Joe Milton because it's more accurate. I joke to throw the ball for 100 yards, but to sky it out. But I feel like Bryce has a little bit more touch and accuracy on those throws as well. So I'm saying I'm a favorite teacher. I feel like I would be if I was a teacher. I'm giving a B+, maybe even A-, just because, I mean, also watching some of the other inexperienced quarterbacks in college football across Saturday, they didn't light it up. And I know the opponent wasn't the same caliber as some other guys, but boy, yeah, it looks like Michigan found something with Bryce Underwood.
Right. I mean, that was Underwood's grade for himself. And yeah, he's probably, I mean, C+ is like average, right? I mean, some people might, if you're, high achiever, you might think that's a bad grade, but that is like average. And he's maybe thinking like, well, that was about average for me. That's what I do, and I can do better. I'm not sure how useful it'll be to compare things to last year going forward, but I think in this first game, it certainly is, and it's natural to do so. And yeah, I mean, he had 251 yards passing. That's way more than they had in any other game last year. I mean, the high was 208 against Illinois. So like, yeah, this is like, we knew it'd be an upgrade, and it absolutely was right away. I mean, you guys hit on it, just the number of different throws he could make. I mean, there were 2 consecutive passes on the first drive of the second half. He had the touch down the sideline to Marlon Klein, on the run, 27-yard gain. And then I think they did a run play the next, but then he threw on the snap after that just a rocket, to Kendrick Bell for a big gain. Like, just here's the two different kinds of throws in a short span, and that was kind of the case throughout the night.
And there are 2 throws you didn't even mention, the 39-yard dart to Channing Goodwin down the middle of the field, and then
Play of
he
the
had
game, play of the game.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
that
I
was the play of
and
the
it was,
game.
I think, 3rd and 14 at that point, so Michigan needed to come up with a big play, and they sure enough did, and then you had the kind of the touch pass to Marlon Klein at one point as well, the floater, I guess you could call it. So, like, Bryce showed the different, like, levels he could get. He get the ball out quickly, he can zip it into traffic, he can float the ball over a defender. Touch is not an issue with him, clearly, which is a good thing because there are going to be times, like you said, where he's going to dial it up and dial it back, and he showed that he could do that. And so it was very impressive, for all the flack Michigan's receiver room has gotten the last couple of years. And look, there wasn't a whole lot of wholesale change this year, right? They brought in Donovan McCulley, but a lot of these guys are familiar names that played last year. It almost looked like a totally different receiver room. And I think part of that is because of Bryce Underwood. We were trying to figure out last year what was going on, right? How much blame did you put on the quarterback? How much blame did you put on the receivers? And I think we saw Saturday night, like, how good an above average quarterback can make a receiver room look.
Yeah, I don't know if the receivers looked that great. I think it was more the Marlon Klein show. But yeah, another thing with Bryce though is just I can't believe how big he is. It's just like insane that he's just turned 18 years old, and I mean he's out here delivering blocks for his running backs too, and absolutely leveling the guy. It's really impressive. And we didn't even get a chance to really see him utilize his feet and pick up yards with his feet yet too. I'm sure I guarantee you that Chip Lindsey has a few quarterback designed runs for Bryce heading into Oklahoma next week, because that'll be tougher. But yeah, we didn't even get a chance to see that on Saturday.
Yeah, the block on one of the touchdown runs was very impressive. I mean, I looked it up. That defensive back, he hit 5'10", 180 pounds. So obviously Underwood much bigger than him. But yeah, still you don't see a quarterback doing that too often, and not sure they love to see it with this throwing shoulder there. But yeah, I mean the fundamentals were all there, and as Ryan alluded to, you had some other kind of high profile debuts, or certainly at the very least kind of their first real introduction to the national stage. In the case of like Arch Manning, I know he had played and started before, but and yeah, maybe you didn't see some of those things. So with Underwood, it was all there. Yeah, that throw to Goodwin on that 2-minute drive was just money. He had tight windows, kind of throughout the night, and he was just hitting them. But yeah, I think what Ryan said as well at the end there is important to note. Something we didn't see from him. Not a single run, not one like design run, and not even a scramble where he decided to take off and ended up getting past the line of scrimmage, which I think is fine in a game like this.
It's smart, right? You don't want to risk getting him injured in a game against New Mexico. No offense to New Mexico, but you don't necessarily need to do that. And I think Michigan came into the game realizing that. But as Ryan said, wouldn't shock me if they show something against Oklahoma, and then as the season goes on against Big Ten play, when you need to pull something out, they will. But we know what the quarterback situation looks like currently for Michigan. You don't want to lose Bryce Underwood for any significant amount of time. You don't want to get him injured. So right now you're playing it safe, and that's all you needed Saturday night.
21 of 31, 251 yards, one touchdown, no turnovers. That was just huge. I mean, that was, the New Mexico coach talked about that after. They were kind of counting on, him having one or two or as many as he wanted to give New Mexico, because yeah, just being, again, making his debut, but it just didn't happen. And Sharon Moore, of course, talked about that as well on the other side, that he was very proud of him. For that. And again, the 10 incompletions, there were several that didn't have to be. There were some just straight up drops, and somewhere it's just timing was a little off. Yeah, that throw to, yep.
Or the case where the receiver's just not looking when he should. That would have been a perfect pass to Andrew Marsh, and I don't know what he was doing, but it almost hit him in stride regardless, even though
Yeah,
he
I was
wasn't
actually
looking.
breaking down that with a high school coach today, and he was kind of telling me he kind of thought, looking at it, that yeah, he probably thought that more times than not, in practice, that ball was ending up going to the running back that was coming out of the backfield there. But no, that was kind of the right read by Underwood based on what some of the defenders were doing. But yeah, the receiver didn't quite realize it. Yeah, we don't need to stop talking about Bryce Underwood, but we could talk about the rest of the offense. here as well. The first thing I'll just say, I mean, it just looked very different than last year. I mean, you've got a new offensive coordinator in Chip Lindsey. I think, Aaron mentioned this in the headline of his game story. Like it was, you had more tempo, more lateral movement, just a lot of kind of trying to stretch the field horizontally, some pre-snap motion, and then, yeah, hit those creases, whether in the pass game or the run game when it was there.
It looked like a functional offense, something we really didn't see much of last year. Part of that might be Bryce Underwood, right? His abilities and what he can do and everything else. But look, and we've said this before. Chip Lindsey's a veteran coordinator. He's done this before. He's coordinated different looking offenses. He came in clearly, kind of identified what he felt like were Michigan's strengths offensively when it comes to playmakers, and he put them on display Saturday night. They moved quickly early. They show that they can slow it down when they needed to. They got familiar faces involved in the passing game. They established a running back, number one running back. I know you can say 1A, 1B, whatever, but I think Michigan found its top back Saturday night. So I think they accomplished what they wanted to, just to kind of roll things out, get Bryce Underwood comfortable, get some key guys involved, get some confidence going with the offensive line. But no, it was very good from a play calling standpoint, from a rhythm standpoint. I thought Michigan looked like a much more competent operation than we saw last year.
Yeah, less smash and more finesse. It feels like with this offense, at least through game one, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you want to be able to do multiple things, and I think Bryce gives you that opportunity. It's amazing what the play action can do when the quarterback is actually a threat to make quality passes. I think it's going to open up a lot more things. Overall, I think the run game was a little bit disappointing. Besides the Justice Haynes two 50+ yard runs, but yeah, I mean I don't think Michigan's going to try and abandon that running through the tackles. But overall, a little underwhelming there. But yeah, it's still impressive overall from play calling from Chip Lindsey.
Yeah, they talked about before the season. They had the two running backs, 1A, 1B. And so one of our, questions on our roundtable stories was which one of those guys would actually lead the team in rushing. We all took Justice Haynes, and, through one game at least, that looks like the right choice. 16 rushes, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jordan Marshall, 11 carries for 29 yards. So, far less effective. Yeah, had their runs of 56 and 59 yards. The 56-yard touchdown run. I just thought he really showed off his burst and then the top end speed to get to the house. Some nice blocking there as well. Andrew Sprague and Max Predison with some key blocks on that particular run. But yeah, he looked like he can be the feature back on a good team. He just didn't really get that chance at Alabama.
That's just it, right? If you go back and look at his time last year in the Crimson Tide, he was largely the third running option on the team, so he didn't get enough opportunities. He kind of made do with what he had. Just wasn't a ton. He comes to Michigan now, has an opportunity to be the top guy, and 16 carries. He got the first touches of the game. He had the 2 big runs, as you guys pointed out. And showed that he can be that home run hitter that Michigan ideally would want, right? When you need a big run or you need a big pickup, he's clearly he can do it. Two very good runs. He was pretty good around the goal line. He clearly looked like the better back than Jordan Marshall. I mean, that being said, Marshall's still going to be a part of this offense, no doubt about it. But it's about what we expected coming in. At least certainly I expected coming in. I mean, Marshall was coming in this year with one big game against Alabama in the bowl game. He didn't do much of anything else last year. Didn't get much of an opportunity to do that. So just from a data point, sample size perspective, it made sense that Justice Haynes would end up being their top guy. And through one game, I know it's still early, but he clearly looked like the better, more polished back of the two.
Yeah, I thought, New Mexico looked like the defense was kind of close to the line of scrimmage, a lot of times, and, almost daring Michigan to try to beat them over the top. And, they took shots down the field and pushed the ball enough down the field to make them pay. Still no, like if you're a listener to this podcast, you remember last year we talked about Michigan, the only team in the country at the end of the year with no pass plays of 40 yards or more. That still didn't happen on Saturday. We've listed several throws tonight of already 39, 30, 27, 25 yards. And I'm very confident that they will get that 40+ yard throw sooner rather than later. But yeah, I just thought a lot more, variety. And again, you can do more when you have a really good quarterback. The other thing I'll point out is that 2-minute drill, which again had that big play we talked about to Goodwin. That was really impressive to see. It was an important part of the game to respond there and end up going up, 24-10 at half. But yeah, they really made it look easy the way they moved the ball down the field and then scored there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned no pass plays of 40 yards last year. They only had 4 pass plays of 30, so they got halfway there in this first game. So you can tell the explosiveness that we were told about in the spring and the offseason certainly is there. Stuff's being dialed up. You got a better quarterback who can locate the football. Guys are getting open. Like it looked like, as I said earlier, it looked like a more functional offense. Guys were it was fun to watch. I'm curious to see where Channing Goodwin goes. He's a name that's really come up here in the last couple of weeks. He was clearly more involved. 2 catches, 49 yards, but they did a very good job of kind of sprinkling stuff around, right? They got Samaj Morgan going early. McCulley had his catches. Channing Goodwin has big plays. Marlon Klein ended up being the featured target in the passing game, which is a little surprising to me, but I think it just goes to show that Michigan is certainly going to continue to use the tight end in this offense. And then toward the end of the game, I mean, you got Kendrick Bell involved. They used Max Bredesen, which something Chip Lindsey kind of tipped his hand on this week. Jordan Marshall in the run game was involved in the passing game as well. So got a lot of different targets involved, which is good. I think from a tape perspective, because when Oklahoma puts on the tape, now they're going to turn on this New Mexico game. There's a lot to look for, a lot to look at. And Michigan did a very good job of spreading the football around, I thought.
You mentioned Marlon Klein being a little bit of surprise. I think it was more than a little bit of a surprise. I thought that the tight end production would take a significant dip with no Tolson Loveland this year. And I mean, Marlon Klein's a good player, but I didn't really view him as a true receiving threat. I mean, that was his first touchdown reception of his career, and he's a senior. So yeah, and some of the routes he ran were really impressive and smooth too. So he's not Colson Loveland, but like it was still a really eye-opening performance from him, especially when there's not much depth or at least healthy bodies behind him at this moment. There was no Hogan Hansen out there. Brady Priesthorn wasn't out there. So and yeah, the depth behind him isn't very deep. So they leaned on Klein heavily, and he delivered.
Let's close up the offensive talk with any of the personnel decisions. As far as who played, who didn't. The offensive line I think was certainly something to watch coming in, and I know Ryan, you hit on it in one of your post game stories on as far as the snap counts for some of those players there along the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew that Nathan Afobe and Brady Norton were going to share time at right guard. I don't know. I didn't see if Andrew Sprague got injured at all, but Blake Frazier got in there a little bit in the second half at right tackle. So yeah, we'll definitely look into trying to get an update there on Monday from Sharon Moore. But yeah, when we figured that Sprague was one of the ones that was penciled in as a starter. I mean, he didn't grade out very highly on Pro Football Focus. The lowest graded starting offensive lineman in the game at 53.3, which is below average. So I don't know if it was coach's decision or what, or a little bit of an injury, but something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and sure enough, Norton and Afobe did end up. I mean, Norton had 40 snaps to Afobe's 24. I think it was maybe the third drive that Afobe came in for the first time. But yeah, again, Jerome Morris talked about wanting to build depth and play more guys there, because eventually you're probably going to have to anyway with injuries.
Life is beautiful and fragile. We fall. We get tired. And sometimes we get sick. But with Corewell Health, we are also strong. We fight disease. We battle cancer. We come together. We come back. We push forward. When the body breaks, we break through. Corewell Health. We can.
Let's talk about the defense. Move to that side of the ball and kind of what you saw from Michigan in this game. Again, New Mexico not a ton of yards, not a ton of points. Obviously had the trick play, which I'm sure we'll mention, but kind of just general thoughts on how this unit looked in the 2025 debut.
I mean, given everything going on, I thought they played relatively well. I mean, New Mexico ran 13 more plays than they did. Jack Lane, their quarterback, threw 47 times. just for 208 yards and a touchdown, and obviously 3 interceptions there. So given the sheer volume of plays New Mexico put out there, I think Michigan did very well. There were lapses at times, and I think part of it was the substituting they did. I mean, you go back and look at the snap count. We were talking about snap counts. 31 defensive players saw playing time. 21 of them saw double-digit snap counts. They played some meaningful time here. So it was clear early on that Wink Martindale and the staff were trying to, get more guys in there, get them meaningful reps, get them game time. I think part of it is to see some of these younger guys and what they can do in live game reps and live game action, just see kind of who can contribute as the season goes on. But Michigan was doing a lot of, I think, experimenting, a lot of stuff going on that side of the ball, which may have contributed a little bit to New Mexico, some of these New Mexico drives. But I mean, really, look, there were a couple times during the game where it was a 2-score game, 10-point game, but you never really got the sense that New Mexico was threatening, given the way that Michigan was able to move the football, the way Bryce Underwood was playing. I think they were ahead of them. They were able to stay ahead of them, and I don't think the defense was nearly as bad as the 17 points in the scoreboard looked. Some of that was other mistakes, special teams errors, et cetera, et cetera. But by and large, I thought Michigan looked fine. They got pressure on the quarterback. They made the open field tackles they needed to. Yes, there are a couple of plays they probably would have liked to have back. Not ideal, but the first game, given that the sheer volume of players that got in, I thought they played fine.
Yeah, and the one time when it did get a little bit dicey when New Mexico scored a touchdown and then Andrew Marsh fumbled the kickoff and gave the Lobos great field position right away. I mean, the defense stood tall and forced a field goal without giving up a first down too. So that was probably one of the biggest drives. And it's forcing three turnovers is encouraging, but I think if there was one, the penalties Michigan probably isn't very happy with that. I mean, it's the targeting call maybe a little. I mean, it's hard to really fault him for that. I mean, Jay Sean Barham made a good play on that for the most part, just a little bit too much helmet to helmet, but you like the intensity and overall the performance. But yeah, like Aaron said, it's one thing for a coach to say, oh yeah, we're going to try and give a lot of guys meaningful snaps, but that in the preseason that happens all the time, and then that actually plays out in the game. It's like, oh nope, they lean on the starters. In this case, that Wink Martindale actually did play a bunch of guys. I think I wrote in the snap counts. It was pretty surprising that, whether it was in the secondary or at the defensive tackle and edge positions, it was a bunch of guys in between, like in that 35% to 60% snap count range. And we're going to see that a lot more this year with less proven guys. There's no Mason Graham, there's no Kenneth Grants, Josiah Stewart's, but there's a lot of guys capable of doing the job, and you're going to want to keep them fresh for throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing I looked at with your story. And yeah, the edges, it was 4 guys, and the defensive linemen on the interior was 5 guys, all 30 to 30 something snaps. So that's a good sign overall. The Barham play was obviously huge. Like, Michigan is up 27-10. And then that play happens. You think they're about to go up, even more with a touchdown. Now, it would have been overturned anyway, the fumble part of it. Yes, if he was down, I think is what that would have been the correct call there. But, the targeting obviously added on top of that. And then later in that drive, you had a 3rd down completion near the sideline that probably should have been checked out and overturned. Seeing it later, it was bobbled as the guy's going out of bounds. So that's a huge play that then leads to this sort of never-ending drive where penalties and other things conspire to get New Mexico in the end zone. So again, just one of those things goes differently throughout that, and the whole score of this game looks a lot different. So but yeah, Barham being out potentially is a big deal. But man, Sharon Moore just kept telling us about Cole Sullivan leading up to the season, and geez, the guy comes in and he gets a sack and an interception.
Yeah, and the depth is kind of one of the things at linebacker was one of the things that flew under the radar this offseason. We wrote about it; it was talked about, but linebacker isn't that sexy position that everyone wants to talk about. So they genuinely feel like they've got 4 guys there. Jimmy Rolter played a ton of snaps. I thought he looked pretty good at times. I know he graded out fairly well in certain areas. So Michigan may be without Jay Sean Barham there in the first half against Oklahoma. I do know they do plan to appeal the ejection and the suspension with the Big Ten this week. I don't know if it's going to get anywhere. I don't know if how valid that is, but we should probably have a better idea as the week goes on. But I would expect, and Michigan's probably certainly planning on not having Barham in the first half against Oklahoma, which I don't know, may or may not make a difference given the depth at linebacker. Certainly you would like to have him. It's clear that they were trying to use him a little bit more off the edge in pass rushing situations, and maybe they don't have another middle linebacker with those capabilities. But I don't know. We'll see as time goes on. Ideally, you want him, but I think compared to maybe last year, you don't necessarily need him, which I think is a good thing with a key road game on deck.
Yeah, going to the hit real quick, Dan. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it was worthy of an ejection? I mean, I can definitely see it being a penalty, but I hate the rule that like you have to miss the part of the next game. To me, that's I don't know. In this day and age, it seems unfair to the player and for a bang bang play. That I mean, I don't think there was really any malicious intent there. It just it's like Brandon Hillman said after the game, like that's football. Like he probably would have done the same the same thing. So I don't know. Well, yeah, what are you guys' thoughts?
I mean, the rule itself says I think if you lead with the crown of your helmet, hit them in the crown of their helmet, that is targeting. You can debate all day whether it's malicious, whether it was intentional. It's it's neither here nor there. I think it was probably valid for an ejection, but again, and then the suspension just kind of is accompanying with that, so it comes with that. So I don't think they have much control of the ejection. Now, again, the Big Ten may look at that this week and say, hey, maybe we didn't view there was malicious intent. The ejection maybe stands, but we're going to pull back the game one suspension next week. So I don't know. We'll see where things go. It wasn't the worst hit I've seen in the world, and we've certainly seen worse. But I do think it was valid for an ejection.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, they don't have the different like levels of this thing anymore, right? I mean, it's targeting and you're out, and that's that. So, yeah, it definitely was helmet to helmet. So I don't know, but again, I definitely it is unfortunate. I think a lot of those calls are tough, but yeah, I wouldn't be too optimistic that it's going to get overturned, but of course we'll be monitoring that and writing about it on MLive.com/Wolverines. Have to talk about that trick play touchdown that New Mexico pulled out. Have the quarterback, actually one of the reserve quarterbacks, come in, more of their running threat, get under center, only for the ball to be snapped through his legs, through, obviously the center's legs, but also the quarterback's legs, to a running back in the backfield who then threw a touchdown. It's a play Jason Eck used at North Dakota State in 2021. He told me after the game. That one I went back and watched went a lot more smoothly. Like that one went on a fly to the running back. This one bounced, not intentional. You can never put it on the floor on purpose because who knows how it's going to bounce. It worked out for them. Caught Michigan by surprise. When you still win the game and double up your opponent, I guess it's something you can just kind of appreciate and say, well, that was a cool thing to see.
Yeah, and look, Sharon Moore and the staff early in the week were, they even said it, right? Like they thought New Mexico would run some trick plays, and sure enough, they did on that one. That was it was beautifully drawn up. It wasn't the best executed the best. I do think the bounce kind of added to the just the way the play turned out, made it maybe even more impressive. That was creative. Kudos to him. I mean, when you're when you're in that situation, you haven't gotten points on the board yet. You needed points. It worked out. So I'm sure. I think I didn't look, but I'm sure it got on the SportsCenter top 10 plays the weekend or whatever. So made for a cool highlight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, social media was blown up, but I loved it. That was. I think someone said the play of the game earlier with the Bryce Underwood throw to Channing Goodwin. I mean, I think the trick play was the play of the yeah. As far as like Michigan goes, yeah, for sure. But I mean that was awesome. That was cool to see, and not only that, but just the play a couple plays earlier too, where like the screen pass where none of the linemen moved off the line of scrimmage too. I thought that was a great play call too. I love a good trick play. That's one of the best things of football for me.
All right, as far as other things from Michigan's season opening 34-17 win over New Mexico, what else do you guys want to discuss? One thing we can say for sure is just kind of who was out there, who wasn't, just generally. You get an injury report before the game, you get to see the pregame warmups and actually watch them take on another team for the first time. No Rod Moore, Mikey Keene was listed as questionable. You guys did he warm up? What was the deal there on kind of those guys or anyone else notable names on the injury front?
Yeah, Rod wasn't a big surprise. We'd spoken to him, I think, a week before when he was named captain. He sounded a little leery about, coming back for week one. You got the vibe that he wasn't going to try and suit up. He certainly didn't. It wouldn't surprise me if he tries Saturday against Oklahoma. It's a bigger game. They certainly could use him and probably want him. But is that the game you want to make your date, your return? And I don't know. And it's important to point out too, if and well, certainly when he returns, he's probably not going to play a ton of snaps. It's going to be a slow, I think, build for him. He's going to have to get reacclimated to everything and everything else. As far as Mikey Keene and the quarterback situation goes, I don't remember pregame. Do you remember, Zook, if Keene was warming up? I remember seeing Jake Garcia. I remember seeing Jaden Davis, obviously, and even Chase Herbstreit.
I saw a video on Twitter of Mikey Keene throwing, but I didn't see. I was eating the pregame meal for the most part, but I did see video of him throwing pregame.
Okay, well, there it was. I mean, either way.
But I mean, yeah, who knows what? I mean, I mean, you just maybe he's at like 80%, but like that's to be able to throw, but to play in a game situation is a little bit different too.
Yeah, we still haven't gotten clarity on his situation. I mean, even Sharon Moore last week said Jaden Davis is going to be the backup. So what that means going forward, I don't know, right? Like, heaven forbid, Bryce Underwood gets into he's seriously injured and can't play again. Who does Michigan turn to as their next full-time quarterback? Is it Jaden Davis, who hasn't played a ton, or do you try a Mikey Keene or a Jake Garcia, more veteran guy? For Michigan's sake, they hope they don't get to that point. But you treat the backup in a different light here, right? If they were to put in a backup Saturday toward the end of that New Mexico game, it certainly would have been Davis just to get the reps and everything else. So
right.
But other than that, I mean, it was a lot of guys. A lot of backups, third strings, guys who maybe necessarily weren't going to play a ton. Jaden Mangum was questionable, but he ended up playing. We had not gotten to see a ton of Jaden Mangum at safety last year. He played a little bit, actually quite extensively on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to seeing him moving forward, because I think the expectation coming into last year after he transferred from Michigan State was that he was going to become a legitimate, at the very least, rotation guy on the back end, if not starter, from our all Big Ten. I think honorable mention defensive back. Never really got to play much last year. I think injuries and everything else were played a factor there. So it sounds like he's ready to go. We saw a lot of him. But one aspect of the game I want to talk about, we haven't discussed much, special teams. I thought there was some good and there was a lot of bad. Dominic Zavada was his usual self, right? 2 of 2. Kicked field goals of 39, 21 yards, didn't miss an extra point. He was great. But the return game has some work to do. Samaj Morgan bobbled a punt early. Andrew Marsh had the turnover there on the kickoff return. They've got some cleaning up to do on that end, because you can't afford a turnover or a mistake on special teams in an environment like they're heading into Saturday in Norman.
Yeah, and then to not go for it on 4th and 1 near midfield, and then Hudson Allenbeck comes in. It's like, for sure, should at least give Michigan a chance to pin it inside the 20. And just booms it like 5-6 yards into the end zone too. Not a great punt for his first punt of the season either. So yeah, definitely going to need to be more crisp in that area against Oklahoma.
Yeah, the result there, not good, but the process, the thinking I didn't like to begin with. I mean, 4th and 2 at midfield, you should be going for that to begin with. So yeah, you get then especially burned when then the punt doesn't work out either. But yeah, special teams little shaky there in the return game. I mean, Samaj Morgan has had some issues in his career with that, and kind of just figuring out when to return it or not. Marsh, I think it's worth noting, they then stuck with him. He took the next one too. He was back there at least. But yeah, he's a freshman. They feel he's dynamic in that, and same with Morgan. You see him, he's got the shiftiness, but kind of priority number one is catch the ball, or don't catch it and let it go. But turnovers are just the worst thing you could do in that situation. So yeah, I agree. They need to be better, and it'll just be interesting to see if they make any changes either next week or at some point this season. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Maybe I'll try to ask Sharon one day about the punting on the 4th and 1 near midfield, Hudson Hollenbeck. My guess, and again, I'm not in their head, I don't know, but at that point, I think they were up 17-0. My guess is they wanted to get Hudson some work. Didn't work out. Clearly, he didn't execute very well. But I would be curious to know what the explanation is for that.
So yeah, anything else from this game, either that you saw on the field on Saturday, or that was said afterward, before we just kind of do a little bit a preview here of Oklahoma.
No, I mean, I think I just one other thing going back to some surprises. I guess on the injury report, it was I think Michigan had a little faux pas and forgot to put the tight end Hogan Hansen on the initial availability report. He was not available to play. And I mean, talking about the secondary again. Michigan played a ton of freshman defensive backs, but the one they didn't play, who I think heard most about during camp, is Shamari Earls, the top 100 cornerback. It sounded like he was among the front runners to be a cornerback 3 after fall camp, and to him not see the field when a bunch of other guys did, was a little bit surprising. I don't know if it was anything. I mean, he didn't play his senior year of high school because of injury, but it sounded like he was full go and full camp. So I don't know if it was just coach's decision or what, but that was a little bit surprising to me.
All right, so yeah, all of this, of course, now leading up to a much bigger game in week 2, going to number 18 Oklahoma. At least that's what they were in the preseason polls. We'll get a new poll here on Monday. Much more to come on that in our next podcast later in the week. Will be a full dive into that game, but quickly we could say, of course, it's a homecoming for Sharon Moore, who played a couple years at Oklahoma. It's his last game here before his 2-game suspension. But Oklahoma, in their opener on Saturday at home, they played an FCS team, Illinois State, and they won 35-3. They were a 38-point favorite, and they end up winning by 32 points. They had a quarterback debut for them. He had played 3 years previously at Washington State, John Mateer, and he had a huge game. He had the most passing yards in an Oklahoma debut ever, 392 of them. Completed 30 of 37 passes, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also ran for a touchdown. Oklahoma a little bit struggle on the ground to move the ball. Kind of their expected top running back, a transfer they got from Cal, only 1 carry. He had been banged up. We'll see, monitor his status leading up to next Saturday. A few different offensive linemen were out, but I think I already saw a headline that 2 of them expected to be good for week 2. But yeah, the defense was pretty darn good. I mean, only 151 yards of offense for Illinois State, just 34 through the air, 1 for 11 on 3rd down. So kind of, I guess, what you'd expect when you play an FCS team at home, but it's all we have to go by at this point, as we kind of look ahead.
Yeah, Brent Venables is a defensive-minded coach. I mean, he's always been that way. You can expect the defense to be good. Oklahoma's problem, last year especially, was the offense. They brought in Mateer. They brought in Mateer's offensive coordinator from Washington State. They're running the system they did there. So, so far so good through week 1. It's going to be a fascinating matchup of quarterbacks on Saturday. You got an experienced, talented kid against a very inexperienced, talented kid, and I don't know. I'm glad they put it on primetime. We weren't sure about Oklahoma coming into the year. We certainly weren't sure about Michigan, and both teams will be 1-0. Certainly, both will be ranked, and it'll be 7:30 Eastern time kickoff, 6:30 local time there in Norman, on ABC Saturday night. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I saw Michigan. Aaron, you said 4 or 5 point underdog. I feel like before the opener, it was maybe a little smaller. Was it like 3? Something like
It was
2 or 3.
2
Yeah,
and 3.
so interesting
2
that
and
it
3,
shifts
yeah.
that way after what we saw on Saturday. Again, not watching Oklahoma's game in full, and of course seeing Michigan. Yeah, I guess that's fair. I certainly understand why they would be an underdog here in the first road game of the year.
Totally. I mean, road game, SEC. Again, we saw Bryce Underwood excel in his first game in college, but it was also at home in a stadium that he has practiced in. He's familiar with. The fan base was clearly on his side. Now you've got to go on the road to an environment no one on this team has been to aside from Sharon Moore. And it's going to be loud against a very good team. So, I mean, the line movement was a little big. I think it'd be 2 or 3 points total movement wise, a couple points, but yeah, it's about right. I mean, Michigan should be the underdog. You can quabble over how many points they should be, but it doesn't matter at this point. Oklahoma will be at home. They got a quarterback who played very well in his week 1 debut. And I don't know. It should be I think game day's coming now. Yes, College Game Day said they're sending their recruiter there, so it's gonna be a big time environment in week 2.
All right. Well, stay tuned. MLive.com/Wolverines. We can put any final bows on the Michigan-New Mexico game after, talking to Sharon Moore and players on Monday. But then quickly start looking ahead to this matchup at Oklahoma next Saturday. Thanks for listening.